co-creation of interdependent communities centered in abundance, access, and joy. So that's the mission statement that we wrote together a couple years ago, and it is one that it's many years in the making. I founded this organization in 2010, and we've grown to have 14 staff and who like shape this mission to, and as is one of our staff members. And it's just really, and as a person who was a teacher in Durham Public Schools, who taught autistic children in Durham Public Schools from 2003 to 2009, this partnership with EPiC is really, it's really important to me and to the mission of our organization. So who we are, our work is us. We are an organization built, led, and driven by autistic, neurodivergent, chronically ill, disabled people. This picture is not our most updated staff photo, but it's got almost everyone in it. And really, this is what sets us apart, is that our organization is like we are who we serve. We're almost all autistic, but everybody's got one of those letters in our name going on. Yeah, or more. Yeah. We are also unique in that the way that we move with our work is through the principles of disability justice. There are 10 of them, and they guide every single thing that we do. And so we kind of boil that down into this sentence here, that we believe that all beings are independent and that a person's value is inherent in their existence and not dependent upon measures of productivity, independence, and/or neuronormative conformity. There are many other principles. Google it, Sens Invalid. They're the folks who created the principles, and that's how we live. What we do. So our goal is to build economic opportunities for disabled people by creating responsive programs shaped by the needs, desires, and brilliance of our communities. So how do we get disabled and autistic folks to be the drivers of the programs that we are hearing from what our community needs? And we've got some logos underneath about the different things that we get in, and I'll try to just dip our toe in each of those really quickly. One of the ways that we do that is through our Inco Conscious grocery store. It's a place where we create employment. It intersects with environmental justice, with climate justice. It's a place where we also develop out those interdependent care-centric work environments that we model for other businesses to replicate. Um, we have a farm that is a place where we're also creating more jobs, but we're also responding to that intersection of food justice and disability justice. We grow food for community here, and we give it away at our West End Free Market that has been at the Community Family Life and Recreation Center at Lyon Park with the West End Community Foundation for the last 4 years. Last year, distributing 50,000 pounds of food and really focusing on our elders in the community and on those who are disabled. And we deliver 30% of the to 30% of the families that are enrolled. We also have the Torchlight Residency, which is a partnership we have with Durham Public Schools. This year we're working with Hillside, Jordan, and Durham School of the Arts. And we are working with students in occupational course of study and extended content standards, where they're able to get a really immersive semester-long residency program in the arts, pursuing their personal interests and working together through a curriculum of disability justice, art as activism, and just expanding their what materials they have access to, what techniques they've been exposed to, and it culminates with a show which is happening right now. And I'm grateful that Toya and Alicia and EPiC are allowing me to tell you about it because I would love for you to come see it. The public reception is tomorrow evening from 6:30 to 8:30. All of their work is on display. We had the open house this morning that was private for the residents. We had 10 Durham Public Schools upper administration within the Exceptional Children's Department present at the show, including the superintendent of Durham Public Schools was at the show this morning, and over 50% of the pieces are already sold. So it's pretty great. The last piece I see as in the pick, we do a lot of outreach with workshops, trainings, consultations. We have a conference and a regular series where we run our perspective series. So that's who we are and how we're connected. And I'm gonna like fade into the background now. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat.
Thank you, T. So, before we get into asking our panelists a series of questions, I just want to ground the conversation with a few notes. I want everyone to recognize that our panelists may need more time to think and process through their answers. So if there is silence for a little while, just be patient and recognize that there's not a need to fill that space and that they will answer when they are prepared and able to do so. Okay, there may be times where our panelists are not able to answer at that moment and they may come off camera. So just want you all to be aware of that we will be looking for that. They may also answer in the chat at times. So we'll also be monitoring the chat to make sure that any answers that come through there or any questions that they answer in the chat are acknowledged as well. Okay, and so we will go ahead and get started. First, I just want to briefly introduce our panel. We have Azriel Burton, Gerald Parrish, and Jay Brandon. And again, I want to thank you three for being here with us tonight. I'm so grateful that you found it worth your time to spend this time with us tonight and just share your valuable insights. It really, it means the world to me for you to be here. So thank you so much. And with that, we will go ahead and get into our questions. I will let Alicia get us started.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. So, to start us off, any of our panelists, feel free to go first, but just give us a brief description of your educational journey. Like, where did you go to school? Was it a public school, a private school, or a charter? And then, if you would like to just tell us what kind of classes you were in, like, was it standard course of study or was it occupational course of study? We'll start there.
Um, I went to all three public schools in Pennsylvania and mostly in Maryland, Pennsylvania, mostly here in Durham throughout the years. I mean, they were mostly like I would say course of study classes in a way, and both special ed classes.
Thank you, Jay. And there was a component that I would also like to add. Did you have access to any other services in school? Like, did you have speech or occupational therapy?
Uh, yeah, I had speech and occupational therapy.
Thank you, Jay. If anybody else would like to answer,
Okay.
feel free.
Yeah, I can go. Um, yes, I went to, well, I went to different schools, growing up. I mean, I went to a special ed, school for the first, couple of years of my, you know, and I was, and I was fully, you know, and this was, of course, I moved to North Carolina, um, in, you know, yeah, I was still in special ed, but I was, mainstreamed, from third grade up into fifth grade. Um, yes, that was in, Cary, North Carolina, and in the middle school, I went to, charter school in Raleigh, and then high school, I went to a boarding school in Mississippi, and so middle school and high school, I wasn't, you know, like I didn't have any like IEP or accommodations, from that, from middle school and on, and but I did, let's see, because uh, mainly just because the schools, the classrooms were much smaller, and you know, and my parents didn't have to worry about me having to go through all those, and of course I did have speech therapy and occupational therapy and music therapy in elementary school, or at least when I was at the special ed school. Mm.
Thank you, Gerald. You also highlighted a lot of important things, like sometimes you begin mainstreamed, but then you move on to grades that are a little bit higher, so you need more support. Thank you, Gerald.
I went to public school in Virginia in the Fairfax County public school system. Um, but I knew that I needed help, so I was able to be homeschooled my junior year. And I had a very untraditional senior year where I tried to reintegrate into public school. I ended up in a residential treatment center in Utah where I was diagnosed as autistic in the latter half of my senior year. Um, But in elementary school, I was separated from third grade on into the gifted program of classes. So I don't know if I would have had access to any services if I had been diagnosed younger in that school system. But I did not have any growing up. I was expected to excel academically throughout my schooling until I started to advocate for myself.
Thank you, guys. And I'll definitely highlight that piece about you learn to advocate for yourself because that's key for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so moving on to the next question, looking back, what do you wish your parents or caregivers had understood about how to support you, especially if you felt out of place in school, if you were struggling with neurotypical expectations, or just had a hard time expressing what you were going through? What would have helped you feel seen, safe, and accepted?
Um, no, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that part again?
Absolutely. So just what do you wish your parents or caregivers had understood about how to support you, especially if you felt out of place in school, if you struggled with neurotypical expectations, or if you had a hard time expressing what you were going through? Like what
Well,
kind of support would have helped you feel seen, safe, and accepted?
see, safe and accepted. Well, I mean, in some way, join. I mean, I would say, I mean, I joined the sports team, so I just felt like I needed something to do. Since I mean, I before then I had a mentor who I hung out with. In some ways, more like a friend of the family, that sort of thing. If I feel out of place, I try my best to find other ways to communicate with other people. That's so far. I mean, you could do that, join a sports team. I mean, you might sort of like think of it as a calling for yourself.
Thank you. And did you feel that your parents were supportive in that?
Um, yeah, I feel like they were really supportive in that way in some area of a sport. Like I can't do football. I mean, I have the physical athletic body traits of it, but I can't play it. I mean, they wouldn't support on that part. Although, I mean, I would have gone for football, but and plus they get hurt a lot, and you know how it is. But they did support me on wrestling, and that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, I think yeah, I definitely do wish that my parents, would have um uh, you know, yeah, I do wish that my parents had understood about how to support me and because I just remember just being transferred to different, well, not just being transferred to different schools, but just yeah, like there was, 1 year that I was transferred to, like I went to three different schools in one school year because of, the placement meant, because I was placed in a classroom with children that had much higher support needs than me and then of course in one class where it was just people that had all these different problems, different behavioral problems, and then finally to a class with with people with much lower support needs, so but I think that yeah, because at the time that I was diagnosed, I know that like it's interesting how that autism has evolved over here, but given that time, I think that yeah, I definitely wish it would have knew how to best support me because I knew because I of course back then what they knew about autism then was it was seen as something that was severe or something that was stigmatizing, and so they did their best to try to make sure that I was included in many things and make sure that I was accepted and included in 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 things. And but as far as like I said, like the me expressing myself, of course, that definitely was a struggle for me. But back then, yeah, I didn't understand it. But now I know like it's yeah, I think you had the support then, I think things would have been better. But I think I've learned the hard way, I would say, growing up in school.
Yeah. Thank you, Gerald.
Um, I struggled a lot socially in school, especially like with the separation of people I had been growing up with into the uh, gifted program, Gen Ed, and supported education. So a lot of people who I was friends with, we wouldn't even have like similar schedules anymore. Um, and uh, it was it was difficult either finding motivation to complete the extra work that was expected of a gifted program kid, especially when I felt like that I had grasped and shown that I grasped the information enough in class. Uh, and then in fifth grade, I went through a very strange type of bullying from my peers. It was very emotional, ostracism mixed with I didn't realize at the time them making fun of the things that I was really passionate about. So like really into performing arts, and I would do a lot of those for class projects. And some people around me would either like goad me into continuing to do things for them, or say things that I felt were complimentary in the moment, and then I'd take a while to process the fact that they were just making fun of me. Um, and I had support at home, but nobody knew why or what was going and why it was so different for me than it was for my older siblings. Uh, so I feel like it would have been nice to not just even home support, but like school support, and like understanding, like not just bullying itself or trying to discourage bullying, but like support and being like noticing some uh, uh, like I was developing some really negative social interactions with people, and having uh, an authority figure, an adult at school, to be like, hey, what's happening to you isn't normal and it's not okay, would have been like really nice. Um, and it didn't last very long, but it did leave a mark on a lot of my interactions from like then on.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear. You said that you wish your parents had known, so obviously you didn't share what you were going through with them, but also the school knew what was going on, and it sounds like they also did not share that information with your parents for them to be able to step in and advocate for you.
Yeah, and it wasn't like again, the type of bullying was so strange to me because I it's not talked about. A lot of people talk about bullying as like mean teasing, but then there's also that, like, again, acting like very friendly, or treating a person like they're kind of a pet to you, and it can really mess up like your self-perception.
Yeah, thank you, Az. Thank you for sharing. Mm.
The next question, it also goes into support, but we're going to look at the lens of different ways that your parents or caregivers did support that made a positive difference, especially considering being in a Black family or a Black community.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that part? So you
Sure.
said that what you were saying is what?
Just if you can tell us a way or two, or however many you feel comfortable sharing, that your parents or caregivers did support you that made a positive difference, with the lens of being in a Black family or Black community.
I mean, I have a family who love me very much in a way. I felt sorry. I mean, my problems are okay. My problems. I had a rough had a rough time too. Too going to middle school and through high school and whatnot. Um, I would say like express how you. I mean, one. For me, I can't. I normally go out have outbursts or something like that. But it's not. But like what you've been through, like you tell them have you say something, tell them some positive parts. I remember, or just I remember positive parts. Really, I like to do things like I tell them that I let people that I guess how my parents support me was I guess sticking up for me. I guess I tell them what the problem is. They stick up for me. They tell the teacher. I mean, that got the other kids suspended, but what difference does it make? He's gonna come back either way. But I have family that really. I have other family. I have family who I talk to that really love me in some way. That is very supportive, is very dear to my heart. Sort of focus on people who are really good to me. It's a little somewhere difficult in a way.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely answer. Well, I would say my parents definitely supported me. That made a positive difference. Of course, they made sure that I was included and accepted, because they saw, a lot of potential, like, and and it's interesting because they know how because even with the autism diagnosis, of course, parents are afraid, or they're feel stigmatized because they think, oh, their child their autistic child can't do anything. But they, of course, they didn't listen to the naysayers. They didn't listen to the professionals or the clinicians. That they saw a lot of potential in me, and they knew that I was, and so they always supported me in all that, you know, that I can do, and what really best, suited me, because they always, and I know my even, you know, you know, well, I could say my peers have told me, just be yourself, instead of chasing after, after, let them chase after you. And so I know that my parents have always told me, Gerald, just do what's best for you, and we will support you. I mean, because we know you, and we know what you are capable of doing, and what you are, and what you do best. And I know that my parents definitely came from a good place where they, because like I said, autism is still is what it is, but they saw beyond the autism. They knew, like, Gerald can do anything regardless of what the professionals had to say about me.
Thank you, Gerald.
Um, for me, I think like the most positive difference was interest support, um, and even allowing like my natural play styles to be as they were. Like I'm I do a lot of things now, like in art, because of the like allowance that my parents let me just like explore making and doing things. I When I was younger, I'd get like wooden toy building kits, so like making trains, or like a science kit, so I could just do something on my own that I was like interested in and like tinker. Um, and of course not every autistic child's going to want to tinker or like make something, but like finding the interest and like helping facilitate that probably is really helpful. It always felt like not just like materially caring about me, but caring about like what was going on inside of me, even if they didn't necessarily understand why I wanted to do the thing that I was doing.
Thank you. I like how the underlying tone was parents were protective, but they look beyond the autism. A quote from Gerald, quote you directly, they look beyond the autism, whether it was advocating for you, protecting you, or just encouraging those specific interests. But I will follow up with another little piece of this question and just ask you, were there any moments when they were showing love, they were showing protection, but it wasn't really neurodiversity affirming, but you knew it came from a place of care?
I can go first this time. Um, I think like one big one is like sometimes like trying to encourage a more typical like social expectations, like trying to get me to um, interact with friends or call this person up or have like specific plans that I was going to be doing with them rather than just kind of allowing that to stop, or sometimes dealing with like some sensory issues and not feeling well and expressing that in a way that just seems like scared, tired, needing a hug, and absolutely not wanting that sort of contact. But I didn't know at the time that that's what I was dealing with.
Thank you for sharing that, Az.
What was that question you went?
Oh, oh yeah, were there moments when their love or protection showed in ways that weren't always neurodiversity affirming, but still came from a place of care?
Yes.
Were there moments? Um, I guess there was in some way. Um, yeah, there was love there. Um, it came from a place of care. I mean, I would say people. I would say mostly like if there's some people. I mean, I mean, my dad mostly like he shows up sometimes to my wrestling meets. That shows that he cares a lot. You know how it is. I mean, I don't know about the. I don't know. I mean, that's all I got so far. I mean, I would say mostly a sports team or something, but that's a tough question. I can't. I have to. I don't know.
And that is perfectly okay, Jay. Thank you.
And I just wanted to jump into real quick, just say maybe a simpler way to phrase that question is, was there a time your parents were trying to be helpful, but they really weren't? And anyone is welcome to answer that question.
Oh yeah, when they really weren't helpful. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to say just because I know, of course, I know my parents came from a well-meaning place, like because they because they knew what was best for me. They wanted to protect me, from being discriminated and bullied, by others, and so I know that they've told me, they've refrained me from behaving, you know atypically, like stemming and in public and things like, I can remember that and they try to get me to stop stemming and and of course, even then, I didn't know it then, but I know now. It's like I know why I STEM. I STEM because you know it's because that's my natural way to cope with and my natural way to self-regulate. Because if they were to take that away from me, then it would have been worse. But I could understand it, out of fear and out of protection, you know, they know said, that's why they taught me those things. But of course, I'm going to talk later about, the masking and all that.
Anyone else before we move on to the next question? Okay. I'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Thank you for all those amazing answers. That was really, really helpful. So going to the next question, I'm wondering, how can us parents and caregivers, how can we best support our children's autonomy, like the way that they are able to lead for themselves, make choices, growing into themselves, but still keeping them safe? Because they're our babies and we get nervous. What is the best way that we can really support them and still offer that safety and guidance? And I want to just make a quick reminder as well that the questions are also in the chat if it's easier to read them.
I guess I'll start. I mean, give them some space. I mean, give them some sufficient freedom. I mean, look at me. I mean, I would start off with my independence was I wanted to. I mean, what I like going to the movies or something. Like, I mean, a lot of people. I don't really. I don't. I mean, I never went out a lot all the time. I never went. I haven't done anything out there. I never went to the movies, or I never went have a chance to walk around or something, or do something with myself, do something for myself, do something with myself. You know what I mean? I like being outside, so get out the house. You know what I mean? Like I can't stay in the house all day.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question, Jay? Were you not going out because they were nervous about letting you out, but you were sharing that you wanted to? Like, were they going
I
against
want to.
what you were asking?
I want to show my independence. Just, just that show. I just wanted to show it. Like I hear a lot of people I went to high school with. They say they went to this movie. They went to go see a movie or something. I never went out to the movie. I never went out a lot to the movies by myself because I just didn't know what I was missing. Because you know what movies you were missing growing up. I mean, I'm a moviegoer. That's one, but yeah, I just didn't know what I was missing at that point. It's like you can't. Even my parents didn't have the money to let me go to movies. I have money now to go to movies all I want to, but throughout the year. So I just, it's like you're stuck you're stuck in your house. You're stuck in your house. You can't just stay stuck in your house all the time. I kept saying, I want to do this. I want to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. How can caregivers support child's autonomy? Well, definitely, I would say probably by, just teaching them, you know, right from wrong, just letting them make, their own decisions and letting them, learn from their mistakes, but still, you know, guiding them. But I would say, yeah, just, you know, like they should, support, they should, let, like I said, not, tell them what to do. Just let them make their decisions, and if it is the right decision, then they will do right. Because sometimes, when you make decisions, and sometimes, people, you might, the person might be able to prove, the parents or caregivers wrong, like the things that they thought that they couldn't do, or they thought they wouldn't do, they prove them wrong. So sometimes it's more about just trusting, you know, just trusting, their instincts, and knowing that, hey, you know, and it's just like, when you teach it's just like when you teach your child how to walk, they're gonna fall, they're gonna make mistakes, and even if they fall, they can still get back up again, and try again, and so just having that, instinct, and that understanding that, it's okay to fail, because that's the way that we learn and grow, is when we make mistakes, you know, when we lose our balance, like, we know what to do, next time. So it's just like, yes, it's just like, yeah, when you teach someone how to walk, and they fall and miss a step, they can always get back up, and try again until they, do better. So I look at it from that perspective, that definitely support, definitely know that, they are going to make mistakes, and even if they know that they're going to keep making the same mistakes, then sometimes you might have to redirect them and try something else that they can do better.
Thank you, Gerald.
Um, when I think about like safety and guidance, I mean, there's always going to be like a general age or like behavior that like you notice in your child, that they're like ready for you to like not guardrail them. But no matter what, just being a place where they can come back to, I think, is like the best way to support that autonomy. Because um like, say they're really deep in their special interest one day and they've forgotten to eat, it may not be like an admonishment for food. It may just be like that day you're like, here's food and water right here, and you slowly like introduce them to like, hey, maybe take some time in between, or like set an alarm for like when you need to eat so you don't forget yet. It's just instead of just like being like, here's all of the things, because life life is difficult for everybody, and just knowing that like the parent's still there, even like post school age, that you can like go and ask like, I need advice, and potentially you may not have that advice, but at least like they know that you are a safe place where they can talk about the fact that they need that advice.
I felt like you were speaking directly to me when you brought up being stuck in that special interest, because if my son is on that Roblox, he is not eating, he's not, he barely goes to the bathroom, and I'm just like, I need you to eat, and so that was a really helpful example of a way to give him autonomy instead of me going in to just check on him, like, have you eaten? Put a timer on. That's such a fantastic example. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because that is my real life on a daily basis. Thank you.
I still struggle with feeding myself if I'm really into something that I'm doing. But
Yeah.
I have a service dog, so I have to feed that animal. I feed me. I'm able to have that kind of like symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
But if you don't have that, then sometimes you just gotta like gamify your life a little.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we're going on to our next question. How has being Black and autistic shaped your experiences, especially in school? And just for some clarity, like what I'm really asking is like, what do you want us to better understand about how race and autism intersect?
How is Black and autism? You said, oh, I'll just keep it brief. You said, how is Black and autism intersect?
What would you like us to know about how race and autism intersect? And like, just to make it really simple, oh, I think I lost my question. I think it disappeared.
Okay.
But just how has being both Black and autistic shaped your experiences, especially in school?
I mean, I think back then, and I mean, going back, looking back then and looking now, I mean, it's still a big issue for me on a way. I mean, I have a hard time accepting myself. Yeah. And, um, but school, I mean, school wise, I'm not sure, but in the community, it's like, people, it could be just, some people are judgmental towards you. You sort of resent that, you know, in a way. I mean, I resent them. Like someone's looking at me, like, they look at me. It's like, is there a problem? Like, is there a problem? Like, is there a problem? And they say no, there's no problem. And then don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. It spells that sort of spells a problem in a way. And the R word, it's not. I mean, it gets a look. I feel like the R word in a way, like, okay, I'm not the R word, and if I'm the and but they still say, if I'm the R word, then maybe you yourself without autism, maybe you yourself with special needs that are Black are the R word because of what you're doing. But like, but you're lowering yourself to that level, and you're getting a reaction, and they're just giving you a reaction. I mean, ignoring them, yeah, but in other part, but like for me, I mean, I had, I'm still having problems now. Like, I have a job, but during the past jobs, I mean, people look at me a certain way, and it's like, that's not funny, judgmental of me. I think they're talking bad about me. I think some people that I work coworkers are some of the coworkers past coworkers are talking about bad about me. Um I would say be careful of who you be around in a way. Just actually know who you're around.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
No problem.
Yeah, yeah, this is definitely a great question. Yeah, I would say it definitely has helped shaped. I think being Black, of course, definitely has its stigma, obviously, and because Black people are more likely to face a lot of more barriers and discrimination than say those that are not Black. Like, that like there's definitely a big school to prison pipeline, you know, for us, like Black people are more likely to go to jail or to be incarcerated or to be dead, you know, and not live long, and I can say, being autistic on the other hand has helped me to stand out, because it has, in some ways it has helped me to be seen as exceptional or unique or different, in terms of you know of you know of what comes with being autistic and so I know in some ways you know as far as the in some ways it has kind of helped, but in other ways it's like it kind of is like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, like, being Black is kind of a societal thing, and then of course and then being autistic is another, stigma, and it kind of does in some ways kind of make it worse. But I know what I would want parents and educators to better understand about how race and autism intersect. Like, well, the first look at definitely look at the difference between, how, because we know autism, like we know that there's, that they can be ableist, towards, their you know, towards their students or their children, but as far as the race and the autism, like I know it definitely is twofold for sure, because I know on one hand, like, for sure, because like I said, autistic people are more marginalized. I mean, black people are more marginalized. They are more likely like I said, to get, to be pulled over by the, in the principal's office, or be pulled by the police, and so and I think, yes, like the behaviors is another thing too. Like people will look at an autistic meltdown as, um, as bad behavior or destructive behavior on their part too. So that's another thing, because pretty much how blacks have been, treated, been multiply marginalized too. So that's another thing too. So it's definitely twofold for sure.
Thank you, Gerald.
I really resonated with what you said, Gerald, especially when it comes to expectations. Because I was diagnosed a lot later, I felt a lot of pressure to like be a part of neurotypical society, like act normal, which was completely like societally normal, which was a lot of like conflicting information, especially like being a black kid, and I was in a predominantly like white school system. So like I would go home or like be with my dad or my brothers or other people in community, and it would be a completely different like experience to how I was expected to act at school. I was expected to act towards like specific authority figures, completely different expectations, the expectations of like academics, um, and being like in that space, despite the fact that I showed it displayed a lot of like classically autistic traits as a child. It was not mentioned to either of my parents. It wasn't noted in the school system, uh, either due to the academics or due to the fact that I was black. Nobody even thought of it as like a possibility. So when like I did what was considered as acting out, when I was like overstimulated or uh, burned out and dealing with a lot of stress, I think a lot of people just saw it as like par for the course of like a black kid being in that space sometimes. And they didn't try to look deeper and try and figure out like what was the actual issue that I was dealing with. Um, so I think that like understanding like from the education like school perspective of like, okay, what are the expectations that the school system is having for children overall, and are those like in line with the way that this child is actually, and if not, how do we try to either accommodate that child's existence or change the school system in order to be more like widely accepting to everybody, which is a bigger societal question that would take a lot more resources than potentially we have in time. But I think like both being black and being undiagnosed autistic throughout school, like there was a lot of like specific expectations as to like what my behavior should be. And I was kind of forced to either push myself into that, or like I'd end up in some like really negative situations with teachers or other students or administration.
Thank you. And I just realized that we skipped a question. I know we said we were going to go in order. We're going to go back to number 5. Apologies for that. I'll let Alicia ask number 5.
All right, going backwards a little bit, but that was actually a perfect segue when I think everybody kind of hit on something that talked about behavior. And every behavior is a form of communication. So when we're thinking about communication, I want you to think about it in two different lenses, like think about as a child and think about now. So when you were a child, how did you communicate to your caregivers or even to your teachers? How did you communicate like your needs or your specific interest as a child? Or we can kind of compare, like, how did you communicate as a child? And then how do you communicate now? And were some of those things the same,
I
or have
mean,
they changed?
how did I communicate my needs and interests? I used to go out, I used to play outside a lot. So that's one thing. I mean, my parents knew about like expressing myself by playing outside. You know, be in my own little world, go out, collect sticks or something like that. A little a little fancy land. I mean, my parents had the best way of supporting it when I told them about. I used to make up characters or something like that. How to get through, how to get, my own active imagination is how I express myself back then. You always have a need of escape.
And do you kind of do the same thing now, Jade?
Mm,
Imagination is still good, but do you still use it now?
not re- As an adult, it can be very difficult. Sometimes it's embarrassing. Sometimes it's like I find it immature and embarrassing a little bit, or maybe a lot. Sometimes it is. It's embarrassing. I mean, sometimes you just, it's like, I mean, you know how it is. It's like, I mean, I'm not a kid. I don't see myself playing with action figures. I see myself just reading on I mean, I'm like any other. I could be like, why can't I be like anybody else? I mean, I just like to move on and do other things. As I got older, I normally be on internet internet a lot, or reading the internet. A lot of people that I went to a lot of people. I mean, I was in high school. They're all on social media, or so they're all on social media and whatnot. I didn't have that. I mean, they didn't give me. I didn't have that. I downloaded music or something. It just never really. I have it now, but never really gave me that type of stuff. Then, then as off as as I could remember.
Thanks, Jay, for giving us a look of then and now.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. When I was younger, I would say that, yeah, I didn't really use my words as much then. Like it'll be like just simple needs, I need this, or I want that. But I know, like, if I like something, I just go after it, or I just try to learn as much about it as I can, and especially if it's an interest, always, because I know growing up, I would try to check out, learn read as much about it, the topic as possible, and so it's usually, so of course I think expressing my interest, communicating my interest is probably the easiest. Then probably my needs, unless I really need something. And then feelings, I'm somewhat like reserved when it comes to my feelings, like I tend to hold or and but as far as how that has changed over time, I would say that, yeah, I mean, I use, I speak more. I mean, I use more of my words now than I have when I was younger. But I say as far as my interest is goes, like I've always had like that has really changed as much. Just the simple things like interests and needs and joys, that for sure. And then if I had any difficulties expressing myself, and how did that impact your experience at school? Well, I mean, I best express myself through writing and through drawing and being creative, for sure. That definitely has helped. This has helped me, but helped me, for sure. Definitely, and then what do I wish my caregivers and parents had known about supporting me? Um, I would probably say, I probably wish that they probably would have known that, that these things do help. But I think some of them, my parents knew that I had a strong passion or interest in certain topics, but they knew which ones would be most, I guess, most productive, and what would be most distracting, I would say.
Thanks, Gerald.
I communicated kind of in a lot of different ways as a child. There would be a lot of times where I just shut down, and that was like a form of communication that wasn't really understood, and sometimes wasn't respected, when I just needed to stop. Um, and um, I learned a lot over time, like making myself speak more around people, the expectation of uh, like what was considered shyness for me when I was younger, but I just didn't want to talk. But feeling like I still had to, maybe, but at the same time, it kind of made it harder for me to like express and communicate like needs. Um, and like it changed like how I communicated like my emotions, which kind of bled more over into like my art, or like singing, and dancing. But a lot of the time, like for a while, that just became like super private, and I didn't share it because when I had shared in the past, it wasn't like taken as like me being honest. Like I can understand why. Like if you're walking into the store with a child and they're saying the light's painful for them, like it doesn't necessarily sound like something that's real if you don't experience that same thing. Um, and especially if it's not like a consistent thing with that child, like just sometimes, if they're overstimulated, and if you don't know that like this is a thing that can happen, it's not gonna be like, sometimes it's just like, oh, you just don't want to be here. It's like, yes, I don't, but I don't because I told you. And instead I would just have to, I would feel like I'd have to lie about why I didn't want to do something sometimes, instead of just being honest that I wasn't feeling comfortable. And that kind of shifted like how I can communicate with people and how I can like express honestly with people. Instead of just telling people, I have to like jump through a bunch of hoops in my brain in order to get to like the reality of the situation now. So like I think just taking things at face value, like even if it feels like this can't be a real thing to you, it might just be like a real thing to that kid, even if it's a real thing for maybe one day.
Thank you all for just reminding us that communication is ever evolving. It starts out one way and it could look completely different in another phase of life. But also, thank you for giving us some very real world and relatable examples. And speaking of realities, next, we're gonna talk briefly about masking and like code switching. But many Black autistic people navigate the complex realities of both masking, which is just suppressing parts of their autistic identity to just fit in or feel like they are staying safe. And then it's also a component of code switching, which is essentially adjusting how we speak or how we present ourselves in different racialized or cultural contexts. So thinking about those two terms, masking and or code switching, have any of you experienced any of these two separately or together? And what did that mean for you?
You know, I did say something that was similar to that question. So going back on it, I would say I would say there were I would say it was both in my experience was both in between. I mean, I did, you know, the judgmental thing I told you about, like Black community and stuff. It's it can be very, very different. I would say, I mean, I have a job. I mean, the past jobs I've worked, it was really, it was really, really difficult. It was really, really tough and difficult because some people they don't understand. They just don't understand. And you know, when I'm out in public, I just want to have a normal conversation with people. Like I like talking about movies or something. I mean, why doesn't anyone else? Sometimes I like to joke with. Sometimes I like to be joking. I like to joke a little sometimes, you know. Um, the days I like to joke, you know, and that sort of just hides my own. That sort of hides that can be hiding, but it sometimes can be expressing in a way because I know people are, and they know some people that I know are playing with. They know that I'm playing with them, but the hard part is like that judgmental look they give you, which relates to the R word. I mean, don't look at if you don't judge me, I won't judge you back. I mean, how does it feel if I say something about a regular Black man with special needs? Without special needs, like, I mean, yeah, oh, those guys are they're from a horrible, they're from the environment where they come from that environment, the inner city urban area, and I mean, they're out in public and they're sometimes disturbing, just ranting on, just without that rah rah stuff. And I mean, look at me. I don't act like that. I mean, they're always in them. I mean, I see in the mall all the time, and I don't really pay no attention to them. I just going about my business like any other normal folk. I mean, I told this to my mom one time, and she said that he's mental, and yeah, my dad says to me, I'm disagreeable, which is somewhat I don't believe it, but I try my best to talk to anyone as best as I can.
Thank you, Jay, for highlighting essentially what you could say, but most of the time you choose not to go that route and to kind of, like you said earlier, to go down to their level.
Yeah.
I can definitely, yeah, this is definitely an easy and good question for me to answer. Because I know masking is definitely, something that is very common for all autistic people, and definitely code switching. Because I mean, I just remember, growing up, when I was younger, like I would think that, because I knew the difference between, a black person and a white person, like how they're, how they act, how, we act. And I know so I definitely have experienced, overlap between the two for sure. Sure, because I know that being autistic on one hand is, of course, is seen as something that is embarrassing, or something that is inappropriate or unacceptable. Like it's just you know it's embarrassing, and for a person to stem, in public. And I know I was taught, early on to not, don't twirl, don't flap, don't, do any, verbal stimming or anything in public, like around, non-autistic people. And the reason for that is, of course, is because, because to neurotypical people, it's considered, atypical or abnormal, but if the behavior is not harming anybody, or hurting harming anybody, then there's no reason for a person to stop, stemming or talking about their interests and things like that. But now, as far as the black, the code switching part, and what has it meant for um code switching part, like, of course, of course, I've been around different black people, so I understood, the difference between, you know, how black people are supposed to act and talk, and how but I know I've been around, like, black people, that, who are highly educated, who are, highly, you know, like, what some might consider to be, bougie, or or just because, like I said, like, the more educated you are, the more you're trying to be like them, or the more, like, how you talk and how you're supposed to talk, how you're supposed to dress and all that. So I knew that, but I knew that, but I knew that there was definitely no one right way to be black growing up. So I knew that part of it, for sure. And that's pretty much what it meant. But I know, like, as far as stemming, and as far as, being in at the right place at the right time is one thing I definitely had to learn, that, that you are, what's the word of, like, like, you know, like, being the example for other black, people. Like, are you going to be the black person that is roaming around the streets? Are you going to be a black person that is just, just doing what they're supposed to do? But yeah, it's understandable that, black people are expected to behave or present a certain way, that kind of fits that stereotype, that our, our white society, T has created. And now, as far as how parents might support their children in navigating these layered expectations, without, I would say, you know, getting back to, that there is no one right way, to be black. Like it's more about, you know, how you treat people, and as long as you're not harming other people, then it shouldn't be a bad thing. But if it is harmful to other people, then there is a reason to kind of, you know, refrain from that behavior.
Thank you, Gerald. An emphasis on there's not one right way to be anything, and just accepting that and just really trying to flourish in who you are.
A lot of what Gerald said again really resonated. It's like what I was saying, that my answer to the last question, and feeling like I couldn't be honest. There were a lot of um, subtle and unsubtle ways that I was encouraged to not do what I was doing growing up, including just like how I even like understand like my tone, or the volume of my voice. Um, that would be like a constant correction from the people around me, um, or how I moved. My brothers would make fun of like the way that I would stand. So I kind of like slowly crafted like this version of myself over the years. And it took until like I'm 26 right now. It took until I was like 22 to start to really unpick which parts of that were me. So like for me, masking and code switching kind of feel the same, because I was kind of like introduced to both of those concepts at the exact same time. So like that crafting of like trying to like unify and be like a person, um and that like really has messed with my sense of identity in some really crucial ways. And like, and of course, like when people don't really have like a great sense of like their identity, it like also doesn't really allow for like a sense of belonging, because again, it doesn't feel like I'm being like honest with the people around me, even if I'm not doing it consciously. Like I realized this retrospectively in like unpicking like, oh, these are things that I did because of these experiences that I had over the past 4 years. And like parents helping support their children, it's like instead of trying to like overcorrect for behaviors, or attempting to shelter them from other people's criticisms by being the first criticizer, I think that just like allowing, again, like that sense of safety, like at least at home, because eventually they can potentially recreate or seek that later in life, so they know what that safety feels um, because when there isn't a good sense of like what safety feels like, then safety can feel like danger. um, and like true, genuine, honest like care from people outside of like a family group can feel extremely scary, even when they're just like being truly honest. But that can also be like due to the fact that I dealt with what I dealt with when I was in elementary school and beyond.
Thank you, Az, for definitely highlighting that safety can feel like danger, and that's what we absolutely want to avoid.
So we actually just had our fourth panelist join us. Thank you, Kashana, for joining us. And I know you want to go ahead and answer this question, and we'd also like to go back and answer question number 6. So the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm so sorry I'm late. I also have the video turned off because I'm light sensitive. I have a lot of like light sensitivity. So I'm gonna be answering number 7 and then number 6.
As a Black autistic adult, I have gone through many tribulations within this world I call home. To talk about my experiences lengthwise would take years, so I will limit my discourse to current affairs within my life. I am currently a 23-year-old college junior studying to become a teacher to disabled students to help them become their best selves and develop their own worldview as they see fit with the appropriate supports. My experience with being disabled have been shaped through many ways. Growing up, my emotions were sadly stifled and made to be buried unless it was related to me being in pain or related to school. Growing into an adult, my Black family soon learned some of the errors of their ways through trial and error through experiences. One way is by actually tailing the time to understand how autistic traits present and how human they are. Autistic traits to them is sometimes still seen through a behavioral lens instead of how autistic people connect to the world they live. Now that I am able to somewhat fully authenticate my emotions to said family, I have understood their viewpoints as they are human too. By being able to have my feelings acknowledged, I am able to self-advocate my needs and wants to the best of my abilities. This information stored in my brain, I can now share crucial advice to those new to advocating for themselves. By helping the current and future generations be able to understand their needs as people. Being Black and autistic is something that many, mostly white people, autistic and not, would never fully understand if ever understand. Being in a family full of women was an experience of being presentable and showing the best of the best. This often made me feel as though I was a gift to be offered to others. I often questioned why I needed to look a certain way, and this was never answered. My questioning why was seen as talk back, so I often buried my questions unless it was out of pleasing the family. Often for Black and brown families with neurodivergent and autistic family members, the act of masking is thrust upon them from an early age. This is because of the systematic racism and harm the Black community has faced. Masking can come from being sadly harmed by family due to them not understanding or refusing to acknowledge that the child is struggling in different ways. Sadly, the Black community is not one to accept mental health and disability because it is often taught that mental health isn't a thing or it's a white people's thing. Having to hide certain traits of my autism hurts because I have to hide who I am as a person. There is so much I could give in this segment, but I will stick to a few things. One would be to follow, engage and listen to autistic people, especially adults and especially Black autistic adults. This will give parents the ability to see the adult as a model for their child and see that things may change once the child gets older. I would advise parents to have one or two autistic people, each having varying differences amongst each other to understand various perspectives. This occurring when the child is given the diagnosis is crucial because this can allow the parents' PR caregivers to see that autism is not something to be feared, yet it is to be understood and accepted. As an upcoming teacher, I would try my best to listen to parents and students as well as them learning from me and my experience as a Black autistic. Both parents and autistic people can learn from each other by listening to each other's perspectives and experiences. There is a notion in the autistic community that ABA therapy is seen as the worst thing yet for Black autistic kids. ABA is often the only choice offered to families because of the fear-mongering surrounding autism itself. To fully support autistic students is to support them as people and understand that who they are as autistic people is who they will be for the rest of their life.
So I don't know which other question I am supposed to answer or which other question I wanted to answer. Yeah. I don't know if it was question 5 or something.
Hashan, I believe it was number 6. How has being
Okay.
both Black and autistic shaped your experiences?
Okay. I'm looking for the response. Where the give me a second. You said question 6, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll answer number 6.
My name is Kaishana AMD. I am a multi-disabled college junior studying to teach disabled students. My goal as an advocate is to show others that more than the white perspective of autism exists in life, and having authentic representation of Black autistic people is crucial for society to build honestly and truth amongst each other. Some of the barriers Black autistic people face is racism and not understanding the culture of Black people. Some behaviors of Black autistic people may be from the way they interact due to ties from cultural aspects. Mostly, white people who are not autistic or may be autistic still will not understand the nuances of Black culture and the behaviors of Black autistic folks. The Black community itself sadly does not have a good understanding of autism, and since autism comes from a narrow white lens, the Black community is often hesitant to acknowledge and accept autism because there is a severe lack of representation of Black autistic people in media and in offline life. It is important to understand autism from all perspectives, and having just one example of autism doesn't allow for new ideas and teachings about autism to flourish freely. We can redefine intimacy by having trust. Having trust is key to having honest and open conversation. For example, if I were to date someone who does not understand my need for AAC and they continue to be misunderstanding and willfully ignorant, then that relationship will not last for me. Yes, I may use my verbal mouth speech, but AAC still hold true to allowing me to fully express my deepest thoughts that will not be fully expressed with mouth words. Having and establishing truth that is open and honest will foster healthy relationships for all. For me, community spaces have not been open as much as online AMD. Even in those, I have had to step back. I will speak about college specifically. College for me, as someone that is multi-marginalized, is often a complex road I have to navigate. I have to swallow white-centered academia as well, the white-centered words that are not my own. When I share my words, they are sometimes twisted to become something that I did not envision. College currently has been quite the journey. I had wanted to write about the Black autistic experience for my autism course that I am taking this semester and was forced not to. I was made to write a cookie-cutter glossary of terms for the white female professor I have. This crushed me because yet again, my words have been silenced by a non-Black person who I thought would be my favorite professor, as she had allowed me to share autistic-led sources. I will not be doing that any longer, as I sense that I cannot share words that are true to my soul. This experience still cuts my heart deeply. I will add an experience that answers about bringing ideas to the table. In college, when I was a music major, I was made to drop from playing the clarinet solo in a piece of music in the band I was playing in. The band director refused to inform me of the knowledge, and when I asked twice to play the solo on my own, I was dismissed. I decided that the white music department at my college was not for me, and I have decided to focus on my education degree and autism certification. As a Black college student that is disabled, I am often made to knitch my words because they do not fit the white narrative of the white professors at my university. I to this day do not feel safe within my college because it does not offer me the validity of being a fully free Black disabled student. Yet I will say that I have found my own journey within this white-centered world by choosing what I can control and what I can pick. I have picked up listening to and playing clarinet solos I chose for myself. I have gotten back into writing stories that I want. The small things I can control, I do not take those for granted.
Thank you, Kaishana. Uh, Kaishana, did you want to answer one more question?
Probably, I could, use my voice for this one since it's not like relatively, it doesn't involve me having deeper thoughts. But, I could answer, I'm trying to think. Um, it's something about the needs and interests, feelings, and joys as a child. I think I kind of answered number 5 when I was answering number 6. I'm sorry. I can answer number 1. So number 1, I mainly went to public school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's under the MPS district, MPS Milwaukee Public Schools. I mainly went to public school because private school wasn't like a financially available option. I took a lot of like regular general education classes in public school, but once I got to like a certain grade or something, I went to honors classes because I was advanced enough to like understand higher level English, higher level music and stuff like that. Um, for college, I recently got accepted into my program, my major, my they call it exceptional education K through 12. So that's what I got accepted into, and so I'm preparing for that. Um, I had physical therapy, occupational therapy, all that fun stuff when I was in like kindergarten up to like first or second grade. Um, Education as a whole, I've always learned from other people. People have not really learned from me. And so I think that now as an adult that there are people who are learning from me. There are people who are asking me questions for once. And so I think it's important that now people are learning from me and asking me questions. I can teach them about autism, about different things from my own experiences, and they can be like, "Oh, I relate to that. I've done that before." And so I think having that is allowing me to have a community of sorts because I'm learning from them, they're learning from me, and so like having that emotional reciprocation, that emotional connection, that social connection helps me and helps helps all of us learn from each other.
Thank you, Kashana. Well, okay, panelists, thank you so much for answering all of these questions. We're going to move into the question and answer portion of the meeting. I'd like to ask for everyone to remain on mute during this this Q&A portion, excuse me. If you have a question, if you will use the raise hand feature, and we will select you as you come in, okay? We are gonna make sure that we prioritize our EPiC families that have been with us through this whole programming year. And if we have any questions that we don't get to in the next 15 minutes, I wrote in the chat, feel free to email Alicia and I. We will send any questions received to the panelists on Friday, so we'll need to get them by tomorrow if you have any questions that you did not get the chance to get answered tonight, okay? So if anyone has a question, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand using the raise hand feature. I saw someone's hand raised. I think it went back down. Guashana, go right ahead. You can come off mute.
All right, hold on. Here I am. Okay, there I am. Hi. So I just have a comment. that you guys just give me, and you just got give me so much hope for my children. My son is 14, and you can hear him in the background. And he's had his challenges. I've had my challenges, with him, just within the school system and pulling him out and getting him back into public school. But you've also helped me to see like how protective I can be, but it's hindering him. Um, and to give him that space to grow and to really be able to socialize and not but you really have helped me to see him in a different light and to help me to like be a better parent and how to support him in other ways. So I just thank you so much for sharing your stories and being so transparent. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Guashana. And before I call on Eugenia, we had one comment in the chat from Dawn Dudley. She shared that she doesn't have a question, but just wants to comment that she appreciates the insight shared by the panelists and that your comments really resonated with her. Thank you, Dawn. Gina.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I just had a question for the panelists. Do they think that if they were able to have a autistic friend while they were like somebody who was older than them, like the big sister, big brother program, would that have helped them out in growing up so that they could see somebody as a representation to what they could be in the future or what they could accomplish in the future? So that their parents, so that they knew that they weren't trapped, or I don't want to say trapped, but that they knew they weren't alone.
Can you repeat that again, Miss Coleman?
You're fine. Do you feel like if you had had someone that similar to the Big Sister Big Brother program, do you think who was autistic, do you think that that would have helped you out when you were growing up?
Um, I mean, I had someone in that's. I mean, I have a mentor that has worked with me before. That I mean, he doesn't have autism, but he's normal. But he's like he's a fan. He's a my mother knows him. My dad knows him. So I mean, I never had a brother figure in that type of sense, but I get what you're saying. It's possible to have like a mentor who's like a friend, you know what I mean? And so yeah, that's a real good question. I couldn't say.
Um, oh, Kashwan.
I'm trying to go right ahead.
You can go ahead. Is it okay for me to speak?
Of course.
I just wanted to answer the previous question about the like if we were to have a like Big Brother program, Big Brother or Big Sister program that was specifically for autistic students. I think that would have helped me, even though I didn't have a diagnosis at the time. It still would have like helped me be able to relate to other students. And I think for autistic students, they would need a program like that because a lot of times in schools, autistic students are ostracized and bullied for their favorite interests. They are bullied for the way that they speak, the way they interact with others, because an autistic student can really love hugs and want to hug a lot of people, and some people aren't okay with that. And kind of like being in a group that understands them if they're not being understood by non-autistic peers would really help them. And autistic students need other autistic students, and they don't really have that. They don't really have that because there might not be a whole lot of autistic students in the classes or in the school system, and so I think having a program like that would be beneficial to the students because they can say, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, I have other, like students that are like me, that like Spider-Man you know, in the way that I like it, and so having that connection, like I'm not saying autistic students can't benefit from having non-autistic friends. I'm saying that because if you have two students who are autistic and they connect, that's good because they can look at, oh, I'm autistic like them. A lot of times autistic students go into schools and they're being met with non-autistic people first. They don't have that connection. And I think with me being a Black autistic, multi-disabled college student going into the field of education, teaching autistic students, other disabled students, I think that would benefit a lot because disabled students don't have disabled teachers teaching them. And again, I'm not saying non-disabled teachers can't teach disabled students. It's more of that interpersonal connection. Like, oh, you're autistic, I'm autistic too. I'm teaching you, and like having a disabled teacher teach disabled students, that lived experience is more interconnected. The teacher understands the student a bit better than a non-disabled student based than a non-disabled teacher based on that experience, based on that, oh, I grew up this way too, I grew up using the wheelchair just like you. They can have that role model, that visibility there.
Sorry, Gerald, go ahead.
Or you were saying me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I can answer. Um, yeah, I think it would be helpful to have like a peer, like autistic mentors, And I think it probably would be better like to have like I know ideally it would be better to have like to start as early as possible, but I think maybe like once the kid like once they come of like I was thinking like it probably would be a good idea for like autistics who are like let's say maybe by the time they're 8 or 9 years old, like when they're like in late elementary school age, or middle school age would be would be good to have people to look up to at the age, because I know if it's anything younger than that, I know it probably because of mental differences too could be another thing too. So I think that high middle school and high school probably is ideal for them to have mentors.
Thank you, Gerald. And I'm sorry, Az, did you want to answer something there? I think you tried to come off mute a second ago.
I think I was just mostly gonna mirror what everybody else said, but I can just do a little summation of that. I think that it's helpful, one, for it to be organic, because for me, I kind of ended up gravitating towards a lot of autistic and neurodivergent students around my time in like high school. Some undiagnosed at the time, as like me, and some diagnosed, um, or somebody who's like known to the family, so that like you have that connection similar to what Jay was talking about. And then it's really helpful not just for somebody to look up to, but also for somebody to help navigating like what that child's access needs might be and where they're not getting met, because that person may be able to like notice like the difficulties that that kid is having that may be similar to their own a little bit easier if the parents aren't autistic.
Thank you. Miss Angela, what's your question?
Okay. You all were great. I have a 27-year-old on the spectrum, so he's a little older. from than you all, but but some of the things that you mentioned, I think he's experienced. Um, One question I have for Gerald, and he might can put in the chat, is about your triangle meetup. I'm interested in that for him. I really wanted him to see this tonight. He's out, and he's and but I want him to see this because I want him to witness this. But I'm going to tell him about it. But I am interested in your triangle meetup, um, and how to get in and how to get in touch with you, or so he can possibly participate. The other thing is he did have other friends on the spectrum, from elementary up through high school. The same, it was at least two that they started in elementary school. They went to the same elementary, the middle, and then high. He was always mainstream. The other two became, one became mainstream, it was included in high school, and the other one was in still in separate setting, but they still remained friends till they graduated from high. They all graduated from high school together. And then he had another friend who was on the spectrum who was in the band with him. The only thing they don't associate now, and that's the only part that I don't like, is that he's gravitated to more typical people who sometimes take advantage of him instead of having some good friends who are still on the spectrum. But and I one last question on it, because I know time is out. Do you all, any of you, still live at home, or are you all in other places that you not living at home now?
I'm independent, so I
Okay.
live. I mean, I have a hard time with that. What you're saying, like meeting new people. I mean, I try to put myself out there and meet new people myself.
Mm-hmm.
School. I mean, after I left for college, I mean, I try to gear towards like meeting new people. Having good conversations. You know how it is. I also, after I graduated, it's tough to adjust back here. I mean, you've been here for years and you haven't seen people you knew. Um, so like I can understand that, I try my best to be careful of who I'm around and
Mm-hmm.
not a good person who isn't a good person. Even if they are, even if I knew them back then, it's like, no, I don't think I want to be around those type of people. It's just trustworthy. You rather, I mean, me, I remain acquaintances with people, but it's like, can I get your number? I would try to be careful.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And Kashana, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, I wanted to answer the question. I'm gonna be 24 this coming August. And so over the years, like I wasn't really one to socialize with other people. Like I didn't have friends at all, really, like growing up, because I never understood the kids around me. I always connected to the disabled students that I would go and volunteer my time with and just be with them. And I think like because it might be because they have different interests and they are doing different things in their lives that they might have disconnected from each other. And I think, and going back to the big brother, big sister type of program for autistic students, having that in a school, like, from like elementary all the way through high school and even in college, would definitely benefit autistic students. And I think, like, I'm not saying autistic people have to be friends with just autistic people. I've connected with non-autistic people before. It's just like Jay was saying, it's just how those people are, like what kind of vibes do you get from people? Because like I'm still friendly, I'm still naive, I still will go up to people and say hi. I wouldn't give my address to them, obviously, but like, like I'm still that kind of person who could be taken advantage of. And I do live at home. I commute to and from college. I once tried living on the dorms at college just to see what it would be like. And I noticed that I needed significant support, and that I couldn't. It's living on my own is not sustainable for me. I would not be able to take care of myself properly if I were to live on my own. You know, like I am independent in other ways, but I am dependent on others in so many other ways as far as like daily living skills go. And I think having that, like having an established program specifically tailored for disabled students, it wouldn't be like the what is it, the buddy system program thing, the best buddy thing. That's what it's called here in Wisconsin. I don't know what it's called in other states, but we have a thing where it's called best buddies, and it's a non-autistic person being paired up with a disabled student. And I will add some opinions on that. While I think both non-disabled and disabled students benefit from the Best Buddy program, I do have some like worries and fears that it's creating a sense of like inspiration porn. Not that like if y'all know what I'm talking about, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like the whole like uh you don't have a bad attitude, something along those lines, where people, non-disabled people, think disabled people are inspirational just for getting out of bed in the morning, that type of stuff. I do have concerns with certain programs because they are not led by disabled people themselves. And I think having a program that's led by disabled teachers and disabled students in the school system from elementary all the way up to college, I think that would benefit all disabled students, including autistic students. And I just think that there needs to be more acceptance and inclusion of disabled people in education, period. So that's kind of my lengthy answer to the question.
And as
Um, so I live with my mom. Um, and the plan is for that to be that for the rest of her life. um, we've worked to like a level of functional interdependence, working through a lot of my issues of like expected independence societally. But I also do need a lot of like tangible support day to day, for not just due to autism but other reasons. Um, and it's a lot more like I think a lot of people here, like you're living at home and like think that you're being treated like as a child by a parent. We have like a really good relationship that's more like roommates at this point because we've built to that over a really long time, um, of her allowing like autonomy with me throughout my life, listening to me when I'm advocating for myself. But sometimes just you need to be with family. Sometimes that's just like the way that life goes for anybody, including autistic people. And like it does take a little bit for me to express that to new people that I meet. I also currently cannot drive, so I live with either taking ride shares or getting a ride with my mom, which is a thing that I try to be upfront with people about. And like most of my friends now, like they're fine with giving me rides or like hanging out with me at home. It's just like those first few like years of adulthood where I was trying to like force myself out into like the box of normative society, were really rough and did not work well for me. um, it's better when I have somebody that I can trust and who cares about me, who I can also care for in other ways that are reciprocal.
okay. Well, none of our other panelists have answered to that question. I think you all actually answered that question. That is going to conclude our time for tonight. I want to thank the panelists once again, all four of you. Thank you so much again for just this rich conversation. This was, I know it was extremely valuable for me. I can only imagine that it was just as valuable for our parents and educators and community members who joined us tonight. Thank you so much for being so willing just to share your lived experiences, for being vulnerable with us. This is so this is really just helping us support our children, whether they're our children that we gave birth to, or we're educating them, or we're caregivers. This is really helping build our capacity to be our best selves for our children. So thank you so, so much for this. Again, we did not have a chance to get to your question, I've already gotten a few from the chat. All the ones that have been posted in the chat, I have taken note of. If anyone else has any questions that you did not get the chance to answer tonight, please feel free to email me. I will send a wraparound email, but I did put my email in the chat, toya@epic.nc.org. It's TOYIA, and Alicia, ALECIA, @epic-nc.org. I will send those questions over to the panelists on Friday. So if you can just get them to me by tomorrow, that would be fantastic. And that is going to conclude our time tonight. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. This has been fantastic.